I love our jingle. And welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Ness.
And I am Jay.
We are back after a little break thing. Sorry about that. We have some things to catch up on because we missed that on last week, and some fun things happened with the Sharks during that week that we wanted to talk about. So, first things first, the Sharks, if you guys are not Sharks fans and are just following this podcast because we have cool vibes or whatever, about 10 years ago, the Sharks put out this fun holiday song called Holiday Sweater. Um, Fans loved it. We loved it. It's not it's not a great song. It's just really good vibes. It's silly. Anyways, ever since the team released it, the fans have been wanting like a follow-up. It's been 10 years. The Sharks decided to finally follow up on that, and they put out a new one called Holiday Inflatables. And I want to know your thoughts on it when you first saw it.
It's amazing. I love our team. It's been rough out here. It's spoiled. One of the conversations I had with my friend on Thursday, just talking about, I think something we're going to get to maybe a little bit later, just about some vibes happening out in the East that are just not looking great at all. And we kind of went through that in a way where if you're like a cup contender, you're feeling the pressure, and then it's rippling through the fan base. But we're not in that position right now. We're just soaking up the positive vibes that we finally, a couple of seasons ago, decided that it is time to do a rebuild, and it was like something that was like desperately needed and aggravating, but we're here. We've cut it all down. We've planted the seeds. We're growing from the ground, and like we're not going to make the playoffs, but we're in a different spot than the previous seasons where we didn't even know what we were doing. And
Right.
now we're getting to see what we can look forward to, and I think this just kind of helps really everybody, like the players, having a good time off the ice. You can see that obviously the front office, like it, I don't know, maybe some hardcore like fans that are just here for the wins and focused on that. Maybe they're looking at this and being like, "Well, you guys need to focus on hockey. Like, what is this fun? What is like they can see this as like a negative that they're not focused on like what they think is important or whatever." But this to me just shows that they're in a good spot with, we're one of the youngest teams now, and this is important to not, we've seen in some other franchises where I want to say, jet again, die hard Sharks fan over here. Everything they say about another fan base is just the outside looking in. But I'm thankful that as much as the Sharks are kind of like the heart of like Silicon Valley in terms of like putting us on the map of sport, we're still inferior in the world of hockey.
Hmm.
Like when you think of hockey, you're not necessarily thinking of California, um, but in areas like Canada and like the original six, like those are seen as like hockey towns. They,
Right.
um, so even though we're not part of that sort of conversation, it's still great that we are able to create this environment where I think now we're looking a little more inviting to potential free agents. Like last season, we commented on a podcast that was done by folks within the industry that we just felt like they had a very narrow minded, like, you obviously don't follow this team sort of commentary about the Sharks, and one of the things that they were talking about is like, how are they going to be, you know, appeal to the free agent market. I mean, especially with like the taxes we have out here,
Right.
like if we think back to the to Vegas when they were trying to move, what's his name? He's on Dallas now. Donoff. Like they were
Hmm.
trying to move him, and like the Ducks were on his like no trade list and whatever. So, but I think we've kind of answered that question. Obviously, we brought in folks like Toffoli, Wenberg. They had every option out there. Obviously, like Toffoli has, his Stanley Cup wins. I mean, Wenberg, like the acquisition of him, like initially, I thought, oh, this is nice for like the vibes, but I knew he was a versatile player, but I didn't really realize just how versatile and how effective he was going to be. Um, but all that to say, like, not only have we shown answered that question, but putting this out and showing folks that it's a very healthy environment for our prospects to grow and flourish and not not feel the pressure of having to um, just focus on hockey. That's just kind of like how I sort of felt when it came out. I was like, this is great that we're able to do this. And when we saw Smith and Celebrini in the video, and I just like it's hard to put into words so simply, but like it's a good time to be a shark. I guess that's how I could neatly.
Summarize it.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was excited to see it because I was like, all right, what are they gonna do this time around? I listened to it. It's a pretty lengthy song. The beat is very West Coast rap, like West Coast hip hop, which is a nice touch. The lyrics, the lyrics are silly, but I was pleasantly surprised by a few of the players that actually had some bars. Like I think Mario started it off. I think he starts off rapping first, and I was like, okay, this I kind of expected. He's one of the
Hmm.
younger guys. He listens to hip hop. It's fine. The one who surprised me for sure was Sturm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
He
like, oh,
was. Hmm.
this guy, like, he's got a flow. um, the funniest ones for me were Zetterlin and Eklund, just because of their enunciation on certain words. Eklund specifically. They also put out like the behind the scenes of
Yeah.
making it, and the dudes like laughing and making fun of each other while they're recording. Dude, the vibes are so good right now. This is
Hmm.
fun.
I pulled up the lyrics because it was one of those things where I wanted to look through them, and really like get a in-depth understanding because there's like a lot happening while you're watching and listening to it. So I just wanted to like kind of run through it. So Randy is the one who introduces the video, and
Hmm.
he says inflatable decorations for your holiday celebration from the city streets to your front lawn, and by January they're all gone.
Right. Was there a lyric that stood out to you the most?
Probably the one that you were commenting on after that came out. That one was definitely like
Who thought that was a good idea?
so to further go down the list of the lyrics, and then you get the scene where they're on the ice with the shark head in the back, and Ferraro says, we're Team Teal coming out of the West where the holiday decorations are the best. You drive down the streets through unmistakable holiday decor that is inflatable. My neighbors drive by and they all stare. Expressive characters filled in the air. The sun goes down and they're as big as a blimp. When the sun comes up, my points go limp.
Yeah. Who wrote these lyrics, like, for real? I need to know.
And then they go back to Randy, inflatable decorations. They're all blowing up across the nation. Let's keep them down to your lawn. If the wind picks up, they'll all be gone. Cece, I make this point quite empathically. They all stay pumped up quite automatically. They stand up tall. They are not weak until Santa he springs a leak. Good old Mackenzie. This holiday season, you won't be bored. Just grab your extension cord, plug it in, it will glow. Get lovey-dovey with the mistletoe.
Yeah. Great
Uh,
lyric.
Randy, inflatable decorations for your holiday celebration from the city's streets to your front lawn. And by January, they're all gone. Zetterlin, they look so festive when they're inflated, when Sharky is elated. Collect them all, buy as many as you can. I'm saving money for a giant snowman.
Snowman.
Snowman. Eklund, old school Santa, I must confess. Blow mold plastic, I'm impressed. The inflatables, they caught on. Now there's 27 on my lawn.
Wait,
uh,
are you gonna read all of it?
I apparently I am. So, and then Randy does the chorus again. Jack Thompson was featured in it. Let's see if there's anything.
I think it was a nice touch at the end where they there's a guest appearance by Mackenzie Blackwood because it was a
Mm-hmm.
nice callback to the original. Again, for those who haven't watched it, in the original, Jason Demers was in the holiday sweater video, and that was released just after he was traded to the Dallas Stars for Brendan Dillon. At the end of the video, like once the wrapping is done and they go through the credits, they added a clip of Dylan coming into the arena, and he was like, "Did I make it in time for the? Is it like I forget what he says? Like, can, do I still have time to rap or something?" He's like, "No, you missed it." And then he's like, "Oh man!" And then he just walks off, going up the stairs, just humming along to the song. And I feel like it would have been a nice touch to have the new guys that were just traded to the Sharks to do that as well, because like they did add the Mackenzie Blackwood thing. Jason Demers did respond or comment like, "Oh no, the curse is like it lives on," because obviously he was just traded before the video dropped. But it would have been cool to keep that going and have the new guys come in and at the end and be like, "Can we do it too?"
I mean, they kind of met it halfway with they did do something where they were watching it on socials. Like they had them set up and then they're like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And then they were like, "Oh, the new inflatable video."
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Georgiev and Kovalenko. So, I mean, yeah, like I think if there was a bit more time between when that was released and that when that trade happened, and like literally they were like like Mackenzie was just coming off the ice or whatever from Sharks practice, and it's like, nope, get on that plane, get out of here.
Right.
So, um are we is there what do we have other things that we want to talk about before we move on to that aspect of what's been going on right now with the Sharks?
No, just if you haven't caught the song yet, go check it out and see see our dudes doing their thing. And some of them should really just stick to hockey, but the vibes are still fun.
Yeah, the one part of the video outside of like obviously everybody like put as much as they felt that they could bring to to the music video, but I think one of the fun parts that I liked was the one where Zetterlin and Eklund were like headbutting the shark. And I'm like, these kids.
They're so goofy. Gotta love it. Yeah, so another thing that we wanted to touch on was the big trade that happened between the Sharks and the Abs for Blackwood. Obviously, this is old news, but wanted to talk about it anyways. That Blackwood was able to get us a second round draft pick in, I forget what year, to
So
2026.
Mackenzie, yeah. So Mackenzie and Giovanni Smith went to the Avs along with the 27th, fifth round pick. And then we got Nikolai Kovalenko, Alexander Georgiev, the 25 fifth round pick. Um, can't be a fourth if specific conditions are met. And then the 26 second round draft pick.
Right.
So that happened on a Friday, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
No, it happened on a
No, that happened
Monday.
Monday. Okay, that makes more sense because then I was like texting Nate being like, God, this always happens. Like we were talking about it. Now I
Right.
remember we were talking about it that Sunday, and we noticed that Giovanni went down, was
Put
was
on
sent
waivers.
down to the CUDA, and I remember I was thinking, oh, maybe someone like Bordelot is coming up, like maybe he's done with conditioning or whatever, prepping him before he comes up with the team, and like we weren't like. I'd say the only thing that surprised me about it was just how soon it happened. Like it was
Right.
always kind of up in the air of like this could probably happen, but we're kind of used to things coming to a head right around like that week before the deadline.
Right. Yeah. It's really early in the season for this to happen, so I think everyone was caught a little off guard. Not surprised, but like just caught off guard with the timing of it. And it was nice that Greer was interviewed and did touch on it, and his reasoning behind it was that he felt like it was the best return that he could get for Blackwood, because he pretty much knew that he wanted to trade him. He held a lot of value, with the way that he's been playing out of his mind for this team. Um, since the trade, it seems like he's been doing really well in Colorado. It is, it is always nice. I always get a kick out of like goalie trades, how they come to it or they go to a new team and they're still wearing their old gear. Love seeing Blackwood in Avs gear with the Sharks helmet. um,
I
oh,
think
go ahead.
another thing to point out as well, like so when the trade initially happened, I was processing it and then I was waiting for like, well, what did we get? I mean, obviously, I think like it was no secret that if that the Avs were not doing as hot when they acquired Wedgwood, I kind of thought they were done. I mean, honestly, we
Mm,
don't really follow that team, as extensively, but in my eyes, I thought they just need some little extra support. They're still behind Georgiev. He'll get his crap together, whatever. And I, while not thinking we weren't still gonna potentially move Blackwood, like I just thought like the Avs were off like the list of like they were done because I don't.
right.
Um, I want to say I saw some commentary about how, I mean, you don't really see a team make such a drastic change in net because even if you get someone like a Vasilevsky, a Hellebuck on a team that, just kind of needs that extra support on the back end, like there's still that like chemistry that needs to be built, like not only across the board, but also in particular with like the defense, just like the ability to understand like how they're going to work in front of you, and then communication when the puck gets dropped deep, like things like that, that I think I just really didn't expect that they would do that with both their goaltenders. But the
Right.
fact that they did it so early on in the season, there was talk about like how because they did it so early on, like they still have time to build on that chemistry versus when you wait all the way till March. Now it's like
Yeah.
now playoffs is like a couple of months from now. Like you better hope that this trade like works out for you because
Right.
now time is running out versus when you do it right before the holidays, you still have these extra couple of months to like get it together. So like that part, and then in the interview with Greer, he also talked about, and I do feel like, especially with people like Granlund, with Wallman, like these players that, like especially with Granlund, like we got him from the Predators, right? And I
Hmm.
think they were just kind of like whatever reason he was moved from there. Maybe he was just having
He
a
was
down
not.
season.
Yeah, he wasn't playing well with the
Okay.
Preds.
So obviously the vibe in terms of acquiring these older-ish players is that this is a spot for them to kind of like work on their game, and then they may or may not stay here. Like at the end of the day, everyone's kind of like going for the cup, and you want to give them that opportunity if that's like kind of what they want. Um and so I think about people like those players on our team where obviously Granlund's being really effective with, you can put him kind of anywhere. He's a good role model for the young guys. And then Wallman obviously offering us more stability on the back end, which like we really need to give time to our younger prospects to just be able to focus on their growth. And then with goaltending, we know like I there was a little bit of uncertainty when we got Askarov about, okay, how much of our marbles are we putting into him being the number one. um Obviously when they gave him that 2-year extension, it's like we are investing in that time, and we're not planning on rushing him. But we, unlike his future was looking like in Nashville, where when they signed Saros to the 8 year, they were committed to him being their starter. Like I don't see a world where you bring up Askarov, who was drafted so early, that
Hmm.
you're planning on having this like Saros and Askarov in net. Like I don't. I think with those two guys who should be, have the potential to con, to keep a starter position. I don't, like obviously that's why he asked for the trade.
Right.
And, we acquired him because we've been struggling in net for a while, even though Blackwood has been there for us in those much more difficult games. I wasn't really sure if he, where we stood in terms of, okay, we got Askarov, but what are we doing with Blackwood? Because they kind of seem like they could both be potential starters on the
Right.
team. So all that to go back to saying that when Greer was talking about the trade, he brought up that Blackwood kind of played himself out of a contract,
Yeah.
because I think he was like, well, we'll see how this goes. And I think that's a healthy way to look at it. Like, I know it's difficult to not get attached to these guys, but I'm kind of in that boat of like, I look at the scenario of like, be great if we keep them, but it'd also be great if we let them go. Like,
Right.
because imagine what we could get. That could be cool. Um, so when, yes, and that makes a whole lot of sense that he's like, obviously it sounded like he kept the door open. I think they did have, I think it was mentioned that, there was potential conversations happening with the agent about possibly giving a Blackwood extension. Obviously, him and Vanacek are UFAs at the end of the season, and Avs are already talking about how the plan is to give him an extension. It isn't a wait and see thing. They said that when they acquired him, that was the whole idea behind it. They are going to give him an extension. It isn't like a trial period to see and whatever. And I think that's the best way that you go about it. You kind of, you don't, yeah, like I think you keep a lot of doors open.
Yeah.
Right now is not the time for us to be, especially the way that we've been signing players to contracts. We haven't been doing the 8 year long, like we can't even think that far down yet. We have to see how. what we're cooking right now. Like, what is that going to potentially look like in the next couple of years? And we don't want to lock ourselves down just because this player is just like so great and so effective. But then at the end of the day, it's like, but what about everyone else around him? Are we ready yet?
Yeah. Yeah, and this team is at least a couple of years out from even thinking about making playoffs. Like, yeah, you've seen a bunch of improvement this season, which has been really nice, but they're not quite there yet. And like Greer is still putting pieces together to get this team where he wants them to be competitive, to be Stanley Cup. Wait, no, playoff contention. I wasn't going to say for the Stanley Cup. I was going to say for the playoffs.
We're even further away from even thinking about the cup.
Right, right. But like, yeah, like Greer had mentioned that the contract that he had in mind to offer Blackwood, by the time it was time to talk about it, just didn't seem like it would have been fair to Blackwood at that point because of how well he was playing. So, you know, he was doing him a favor as well as, benefiting the team in the process. Had to trade him because he got the best offer he could. I think in this interview, he also mentioned that the last time a goalie was able to get a second round draft pick was when Fleury was traded.
Mm.
And I can't remember to which team, but Fleury was traded a couple times in the past few years. So like, if you look at it that way, like Fleury is a top, like an elite goalie to get a second round, and like Blackwood getting a second round draft pick. That's pretty good. You can't be mad at the guy for that.
Pretty
I
sure
am.
he's a three-time Stanley Cup winning goaltender
Yeah,
who
yeah,
got a
yeah.
second round pick when he was traded, and for us to get that from the Avs, I mean, obviously we don't know what like the draft's going to look like in 26, but when I saw that, I was like, okay, but what's Greer going to do with that pick? Like,
Right.
I don't think any of this is obviously us getting Georgiev. Like, people were obviously, whether they're reacting just from in the moment emotionally. Obviously, Blackwood, you could see him, with him participating in the holiday video with the outtakes. Like, it was a really he really enjoyed his time here.
Right.
I'm sure like Avs writers have asked him about it. He's said some good things about his time here, and but like you said, Greer kind of saw it as you kind of have started playing. Uh, what was the thing that I said? You played yourself out of the contract or something like
Yeah.
that. He deserved more. We're not willing to give more, and I'm totally down for that because I didn't want us in a scenario where Blackwood was playing that well. And then obviously Askarov has been, something we're going to talk about like a little later. Like, he's been, when we traded for him, it was with the understanding we don't want to tell him like, oh, we're not going to do like what the Preds did and then end up doing that. Like, I don't, if Blackwood is playing this well and then you still bring up Askarov, like, it's not fair to them if they're both playing that well. They're both worthy of a starter position. I don't feel like you keep both of them and then just like overwhelm the net.
Right. Right. Um, I did want to ask you a question, but I think I want to take our little ad read break here. So, for the next couple of minutes, you just let us talk about our sponsors. We're sponsored by Game Time. This is an app I use pretty frequently whenever I go to Sharks game. Pretty reliable. I'm getting ready to buy some tickets to possibly go to Pride Night coming up for the Sharks. They do have these Game Time picks that give you the best options for the specific game you're choosing, best deals for whatever seat you're looking for or you might want to buy. They have something called a super deal that gives you basically the best value. I also really like to use the feature with the all-in pricing, so I know exactly how much money I'll be paying instead of like being surprised by all the fees at the end. It also has a feature for the seat view. So like panoramic, click the seat, you can see exactly what it is that you're going to be looking at if you're sitting there. To take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks, you can download the Game Time app, Create an account and use the code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code with THPN for $20 off, which is actually a pretty good deal. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. That's so funny. If you want to do it online, go to gametime.co. Just remember to put in the code, get your $20 off, support us in the process. You know, your favorite podcast and all that.
It's the most wonderful time of the year for getting in on all hoops, football, and hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7. And here's a gift for all our new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/bball.
Yeah, so that was our sponsors. Wait, was there something else I need to read for that? Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that. Anyways. Wait. My question to you. I don't know if you saw any of the stuff coming out from Avs fans after the trade about Georgiev. Apparently, he was not getting along with the team, which is probably part of the reason why he was traded out of Denver, um, which is also apparently something that the Rangers fans had talked about when before he was traded to Colorado, and so now I didn't feel any which way about Georgiev. I was like, okay, another goalie. He's the way Elena talked about him, he didn't seem to be doing well so far. So I'm just like, all right, the Sharks are just on Team Tank again, to get a higher draft pick. But I am curious to see if how he does here, because as we've mentioned with the holiday videos, like this team, their vibes are really good right now. The team chemistry is the highest it's been in years. The dude was miserable in Denver. Like you could see him getting into arguments with some of the top guys over there. And so I'm curious to see how he does and if this environment benefits him and if he will play better or if he just is another problem in the locker room, because sometimes that happens. But we root for these guys. I'm not I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I don't really know personality wise what could be happening there. Obviously, from the outside looking in, we're seeing folks comment about, oh, is this person locker room cancer or
Right.
something like that. But but then that also that kind of talk was sort of circling around Eric Carlson, and I was just like, oh please, people are just clearly from my perspective, I felt like it was a lot of made up speculation during the time, especially when we were still attempting to go for the cup and to get into the playoffs, when we definitely had no not the right personnel to get us there. Even stuff where the obviously, and then people are going to be frustrated, not necessarily because there's some unresolved beef between folks. I think in those situations, it could be purely that everyone just has this really high expectation and they're not meeting it, and it's frustrating just to continue to lose and to not yeah, to just not be where they wanted to be. And I think there was like several seasons back where like Couture and Carlson were yelling at each other like on the bench, and I don't think that has anything, like I said, like unresolved beef or anything like that. I just think those are like two high performing players that are just frustrated on the ice, and maybe they're just not seeing it from agreeing on like the direction or something. And I believe, like, wasn't Carlson the captain and for the Senators? So
Hmm.
you have two of these leader types. And obviously when he came in that first year, I think, like any person who's coming into a new team, you're gonna gauge the the waters. You're not gonna step on people's toes. But he had been, obviously, eventually he became an assistant captain. So then you've got that whole dynamic. So when I'm hearing stuff where like, oh, potential things were circling around Georgiev, like when it's time during with the Rangers. I don't like I know even less about his time with the Avs. So I mean, but both those teams were, they weren't necessarily at the time in a rebuild. So when you put in the fact that they're expected to perform well, and if the team's not performing well, there could just be frustrations in the locker room. And then obviously if you isolate a certain clip that is pulled from broadcasts, and then you let that marinate, it could be anything you can think of, you know. So whatever the case may be, when that trade happened and there's people's reactions to it, I am trying to remember, like, obviously we were talking about how I was mostly surprised that it happened so soon in the season. But people, I saw mixed reactions of, oh God, we're getting Georgiev. Oh, we're back to tanking. And I didn't really see it that way because, I mean, like we were talking about, this is not our season to be looking at the playoffs. We're creating an environment where we have the veterans there to kind of anchor the lines, to give room for, the Celebrities, the Smiths, our other prospects coming up, just giving them the ability to not have so much on their shoulders, where they can just go out there and refine their game and get the experience. And Blackwood was also in that boat of New Jersey had him for, they were looking at him to be their number one, and as we saw this past season, they did a huge overhaul. They have Jake Allen, they have Jacob Markstrom like in their crease. Like that's not what it looked like a couple seasons ago, and then they gave us Blackwood for like a bag of pucks and whatever, and then when we got him, I remember being like, oh, okay. I don't know how to feel about this, but obviously, because we are in a position where you've got a shitty contract you need to move, well, I would love some of those juicy picks you've got coming up in the draft. That's the position that we're in. And so obviously we get attached and we see us getting better. And then when we move our goaltender that's been able to like stop 40 shots a night, like other teams that could really benefit from that and have bigger stakes right now, like making the cup. Because I think there's someone on the Avs, I think is it McKinnon or Rantanen, who are like a UFA at the end of the season?
Mm,
Like their window is like, we need to do this.
right.
They're in that position. We're not in that position. We are in the position where, yeah, it sucks. We want Vanacek obviously to do a little more in the crease. He could potentially just be the veteran presence if we decide to keep him here, or if he, improves and a team is inquiring, like he could potentially be moved during before the trade deadline. There's a lot of these options on our plate right now. And we're not, like we've already said this, we're not in a position to lock down any of these players for long-term contracts. If anything, let's say, Blackwood wasn't doing quite as well. Like he was still like, we definitely want your services here. You can help us out, but maybe you're not getting as much interest from a cup contender to give us what we want. Might as well keep you around, sign you for, 2 to 3 years or something like that. And then still the prospect of you could be moved. Like that's just where we're at. So when we got Georgiev, I kind of looked at same as how we got Blackwood.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the Avs are like, yeah, we can't, we're done. Like we need something else. We're in a position where we need to be focusing on winning, and it's just not working with you anymore in net. Like move along, type of thing. And so I was fine with it. I was fine with getting Georgiev. Like, I mean, I think it was either Blackwood or a past goalie that we had sung praises of um, our goalie coaches. We know that when we had Kakkonen, like he just really needed some work to kind of ground him back in the crease and give him confidence. And while he didn't do it to the point where we kept him, I firmly believe that that is one of those things where we have some sort of magic in our goalie coaching that we can give those services to Georgiev. To obviously he's still young enough that he doesn't want to, his career is not done. He's not going to be here to just be the, like Fleury. He, after his time with Vegas, he's in a position now where he's the mentor for the up and coming. He's not looking for a starter position. He's done that in his career, and Georgiev's not there yet. He still has many potential years if he can turn his game around, and this is his opportunity to do it with us, whether it's in the next couple months where we can flip him again and he can go somewhere and help a team go for the cup, or potentially he sticks around and we give him like a year or so or whatever. Like I didn't see it as a negative. Obviously, we got some other like Kovalenko. Like, oh my god, in the second game that we had him,
Yeah.
3 assists, and you put him right next to Celebrini, and he just was able to. I mean, obviously, Celebrini being the guy, like as long as you can get on his page, like you'll work fantastic next to him. And Kovalenko, right, like just days after he got off the plane and brand new team, brand new system, he was like, "Yep,
Yeah, that was a really
I'm
good game.
yeah."
On
Like,
the sorry, I was gonna
no,
say
go ahead.
on the topic of goalies, I wanted to switch gears a little bit because this I've been excited to talk about this specifically. But hold on, give me a second. Thirsty. Okay. Askarov. He's played what, like 2 games with the Sharks now?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to catch either of them, but I did watch the highlights for last night's game against the Oilers. What a disappointing loss. But the kid, oh man, I'm so excited for what's coming. This guy is so calm in net. How old is he? Like 20, 21,
22.
22?
Mm-hmm.
He's a baby. This guy has time. He's so like he is commanding that crease. And there were certain plays I saw he moves very slowly in the crease, but not in a way that worries me that he's not going to get to the puck. I don't know how else to explain that. He's just like so chill, and he's like, "I got this. It's fine."
Sometimes he's a little too chill about it. Like if you've
Yeah.
seen that play where he dangled around like 2 Oilers, and I'm like, bro, please just give it to Granlund.
No, I didn't.
You're too close to that open net. Just give it to him.
I guess it depends where he is on the ice, where he needs to be like, okay, a little more urgency over here. but he had a 39 save game yesterday against the Oilers. Um, he wasn't upset by the fact that he lost. He's still very upbeat. You know, in post game interview, you were talking about how happy he was and how lighthearted he was. This kid is something special, and it's again, I haven't been a Sharks fan as long as you, so I haven't seen like the glory
Uh-huh.
days of the Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started catching the tail end of it. So it's really exciting to see it building up from the beginning, getting the like drafting the top prospects, trading for this guy, which is insane that this opportunity even came up. The fact that Greer was able to make it happen. Apparently, he's the top goalie prospect in the world. I don't know, man. This is going to be really good for the Sharks. I'm so stoked just seeing flashes of it. Ugh,
Greer is playing 40 chess.
yes.
That is why when we made that Georgiev Blackwood trade, I was like, oh, something else. Like, what else you got? I was just like so excited with like just the potential that this is going to lead to something even bigger. I mean, obviously sucks to lose a personality like Blackwood, but he's on to bigger, better things. We want that for him. He's a young goaltender that unfortunately, time with the Devils, didn't work out for them. This was kind of his pit stop, with the potential that if I don't know how far into the future Greer was looking to potentially get Askarov. Obviously, this was something that we could probably say was in the mix, but he wasn't putting all his marbles, in that bucket or whatever that analogy is. Um, like there was a potential future where we did keep Blackwood, and maybe this Askarov thing never amounts to whatever. Like maybe the Preds decide to move on from Soros, whatever it is. But the fact that we did get him, the fact that he was more or less, if the Preds did not have Soros, it looked like it was going to be his opportunity to come up and show them what he's got, and he's just been kind of marinating in the AHL. I think before we got him, he played only like 2 games prior to that for the Preds. I mean, they've kind of been in the playoff like conversation for a while now, so kind of makes sense. But he kind of felt like he wanted more of that chance, and he does get it here with unfortunately Vanacek got hit in the face with a puck. Just poor dude's just chilling on the bench, and this puck was like, not today. And so that sucks. That's kind of like, oh, like you see the news that your buddy went down. It's like, my chance is here to get more NHL. Obviously, I don't think he was thinking like that, but you can feel sorry and then also see is like, oh, my opportunity.
Right.
And when I see it made sense for Georgiev to go against the Avs to start him, but I was saying like, are we gonna start him against the Avs? And then it didn't happen, and I was like, oh my god, are we gonna start him against the Oilers? And then I'm like, I don't know, are they gonna do it? And then when they did, I was like, you know what? Okay, let's go with it. Like throw him in the deep end.
And
I
they sure
think,
did.
yeah. Like in the first period that I got to watch, I just the way, like you said, he's very calm in net. Like I think the only goalies that come to mind where they don't freak me out when they're so active in the net is probably Marc-Andre Fleury. Like he's a very aggressive goaltender in the crease. Maybe not so much now, but in his like heyday, like he was just like a rabid cat, just like staring you down, like I dare you to take a shot on this net. But Askarov's not really like that, and like I was thinking within that first period that had that, if you think back to when like the last game of last season with the Oilers and Blackwood was down and out, and we
Mhm.
had Devin Cooley in net. No disrespect to Devin Cooley, but him and Askarov are not on the same. Obviously, our defense was horrendous last season, but even just sort of the way that Cooley was playing in net, like if we would have put Askarov in that scenario, I think he definitely would have stopped a few more. Had probably would not have gotten the win just because there was no help. But just the way that he was playing in that first period made me feel calmer, even if he let some in. Like there was that one play where it was like McDavid was coming down the line and he was getting really down low to like the face off dot area, and Askarov just kind of like stared him down, just like stood tall in his crease. And even there was this one where I think he did some like right to left slide save, and he was just like stretched his way over to the other side to make that other save. Just things like that, like you can see the potential in his game once he just needs to see more of it. Like if you're spending so much time down in the AHL the at that level of play, at that skill set, like I don't think that is necessarily going to help you improve your skill set for the NHL. Like you just kind of have to be able to be in those moments. And it's good that unfortunately Vanacek going down gives him that opportunity, but regardless of how it happens, he gets the opportunity. They put the trust in him to start against the Oilers. They could have started Georgiev because it wasn't a back-to-back, but they decided, you know what, we're going to give the kid the start against one of the top teams in the National Hockey League, and he has to go and take shots from Leon Draisaitl and like McDavid. Like I don't think any of the games offhand from my recollection were against the Oilers when he had his time with the Predators, but you're giving this guy like this huge opportunity to show us what you got, and he took that opportunity and ran with it. He saved what you said 39 shots, and it came all the way down to he almost got them to the shootout. Like, and then at the end of the game, obviously he's very happy about it, which I'm like, good for him. Yes,
Right.
be happy about it. He's just
Played
loving it.
great.
Yeah.
Because I
Meanwhile,
remember.
Devin Cooley, nothing
Right, right.
else
That
matters. We're all
we
gonna
all gonna die
die.
anyway.
Like, okay.
You're right. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, that was hella funny. Okay. Let's shift gears here a little bit from the Sharks. That's all we've been talking about because we love this team. They're so much fun. I guess another trade happened this week. Kaapo Kakko formerly from the New York Rangers, has been traded to the Seattle Kraken. Because you do follow the Rangers, I did want to ask your opinion on that a little bit. I haven't been keeping too much. What's the word I'm looking for?
Keeping up with.
Yes, thank you. I haven't been keeping up too much with the Kraken this season, so I can't say that like, well, yeah, this is great for the team. Or too bad that they lost these pieces. Blah blah blah. I can't say that. I haven't. Anyways, it is nice to see the Kraken being involved in a decently like. This seems like a bigger trade, seeing that they gave up a player, a third round pick, and a sixth round pick in the upcoming draft for Kaapo Kakko, whomst I believe was a former first overall draft pick.
Second, second overall.
Oh, who was first?
Jack Hughes.
Oh, okay. Just kidding. He was second overall draft pick. Anyways, he's supposed to be this decent player. I remember when he first came into the league, the Rangers were like putting all this pressure on the kid and he wasn't doing well and people were blaming the coach on that at first and blah blah blah. So it seems like his time in the Rangers hasn't been great, and then now with all of this crazy drama happening around the organization with the front office and whatever it is, and the players don't seem to be getting along, it makes sense why he wanted out if he's the one that requested the trade, you know. But what are your thoughts on that?
So prior to the trade, I mean, obviously the Rangers have not been doing very well as of late. They just lost against Carolina. There's just a lot of there's a Rangers podcast that I listen to, and I'm really curious to kind of get like what is happening. Um, and it just seems like they're kind of just in a frenzy right now. They're just like they don't really understand what's going on. Um, and I thought it was interesting with around so I was going to mention prior to that, I mean, obviously with the entire team just not doing well, they obviously moved Truba like what, a week or so ago, and that was really strange, and that kind of started my curiosity of like what are they doing, like why, what, like um and then you take actually Truba's not necessarily the defenseman that is getting you points. He's more so helping with the defensive side in terms of pushing players away from potentially scoring and things like that. And he also played quite a bit of minutes. So you move this guy, and now you have to fill in that hole, and it doesn't look like they have. And then they kind of put other players in a blender, and they really shook up the line. Like at one point when they did that, they had like Chris Kreider on the fourth line. I was like, whoa. And then they had like Mika like on the second or third line. They had some of their like obviously really good performing young guys like up on the top line. I mean, yeah, if things are not working, like give the guys that, even if they're not your stars, if they're the ones that are the only folks that are really showing up and producing, why not give them more time on ice and whatever. And out of all that, Kaapo Kakko was scratched, and and then there was some talk after that game where he kind of expressed his feelings about that, and he just kind of felt like he didn't really understand why he was the odd man out. And he just kind of felt like, oh, it's because I'm pretty much like the easiest one that you're gonna be able to decide, yeah, you're the odd one out, and you're just going to continue to give your veterans who are getting paid like the big bucks and whatever, who have the most time on ice, they continue to hold their position in the roster even though everyone's not performing. And then the coaching comes in and sort of just says like, yeah, that's like no, like countering that and whatever. So you can just feel like we don't really hear too much from the players' perspectives sometimes at like this raw. And the fact that it did come out, we're just like, what is happening in that locker room? So it is no surprise that he gets moved a couple of days later, and sucks for the Kraken to lose the one of their beloved defensemen, Will Borgen, but hopefully things are not going to be as bad as it seems for him to be moving from what seems like a good environment out in Seattle to one that like looks like it's going to combust. And then for Kaapo, I mean, honestly, I don't really understand what was happening there in terms of like, was it just a lack of focus on his progression? Is it just all the player not kind of showing up? Like, I really don't have that insight of that aspect of what could have what was the reason for it, but all I can say is that I hope it's just the change of environment thing that he needs, because I was actually looking at the that draft year, and it's interesting that even within just the top 7, that these players have been drafted to have been traded to other teams already, and they're all like, what, he's like 22 or something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Jack Hughes, he's still with the Devils. Okay, Kaapo Kakko is 23. Okay, so Jack Hughes is still with the Devils. Kaapo Kakko's moved on from the Rangers. Kirby Doc, I believe he's with the Habs now. Yes, he's with the Habs. So he was the third overall pick. No longer with Blackhawks. I mean, obviously Blackhawks have kind of downward spiral, so it sort of makes sense that they ended up trading such a high prospect. Bowen Byron, originally drafted by the Avs, he was moved over to the Sabres. I'm gonna butcher this guy's last name, Alex Turcotte. I think he's still okay. Well, he's still with the Kings. And then Moritz Seider, he's still with the Red Wings. Oh, Philip Broberg, originally drafted by the Oilers. Now he's with, I believe, the Blues. So I don't really know a whole lot about this draft year. And obviously, the other guys that were moved, it's just kind of like because of the direction of the franchise, but whatever it is. So I don't know. I just kind of like wish him well, because there was this quote that I saw from Mika Zibanejad when they were asking him about his feelings in regards to the Kaapo trade. I'm gonna pull it up here. He said, let's see. Actually, I don't think that was related. I think that was specifically about. I'll have to look it up later. I think that quote that I was looking at was related to Zibanejad's um, performance. But I do remember talking about just how he was kind of trying to give perspective from Kaapo is Finnish and Zibanejad is Swedish. And obviously, you're coming in, you're a young guy, you're coming into a North American league, and there's like the cultural clash. And it's like, I was talking to a friend about how, it's like, for me, I'm very introverted. I tend to, if I'm put in an environment where, like, let's say it's not about hockey, like, I tend to be very comfortable in an environment where, if we're talking about hockey, I'm obviously going to be really interested. But if I'm coming into an environment where it's just a bunch of strangers, a bunch of random people talking about things that I don't really care about, or maybe you're in an entirely different country and you don't kind of know like the etiquette, or you don't really catch on to the jokes. Like, I remember in undergrad, I had a lot of coworkers who were international students, and like one day, one of my coworkers printed out this whole list of like slang, or like just sayings, and he was really curious to learn about them. And he would ask me, like, do you know what this means, do you know what that means? And I would tell him, like, oh yeah, this is that and that and whatever. And he's like, oh wow, like, if you say those certain things like in a room and they're supposed to be a joke and you don't get them, so you don't laugh, like, how are you supposed to be able to like vibe with people? And then, like, I remember seeing people talking about how, like, he didn't really come out of his shell, or he wasn't like, he wasn't as like offering of his personality or whatever. But I don't know if like I can see from the perspective where Miko's coming from, where he's saying that he understood his struggles under with the cultural shock of it, and he felt like he was starting to come out of his shell in like the last couple of years before he got traded. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, where he maybe just didn't vibe so much with the fan base, and they just always felt like he was just like terrible pick in the draft. But whatever the case may be, hopefully this works out for like both franchises because it's very upsetting to see like he's 23. Like I don't like if I look back at like how I was when I was 23, like God, the amount of pressure and everything. I know that they kind of grow up in that sort of thing by the time you're like a teen. It's all this talk already. Like me and Nate joke about like when we got that 2026 draft pick from the
Mhm.
Avs, and I'm like, that's so far away. And then Nate's like, yeah, what 15-year-old am I looking to
Right.
to start keeping track of? I mean, like freaking like Connor Bedard was being talked about like that early on in his career. It's kind of crazy that
Yeah.
you're going through all these like general life stuff on top of like potentially these people from across the world are looking at you as a product for their potential you know franchise where you're going to make like millions of bucks. Like I don't know,
Right.
that seems like a lot to take on.
No, that's so easy. What do you mean? Yeah, so we wish him the best. Like doesn't seem to have had the best run in this league so far. You like you hope that the Kraken will treat him better. That organization does seem to be a little bit better with the vibes than the Rangers. So hopefully that
One
works out
last
for
thought
him.
I have, like even with like Alexei Lafreniere is the first overall pick, and he's like only started to kind of like get his footing in the last couple of seasons. But just like that pressure, even from being the first overall, and I think in that draft it was kind of there wasn't really a standout first overall, but the fact
Right.
that you are chosen
Right.
first, it's like you get all this crazy pressure to, well, you're the first.
Right. Maybe he's the one I was thinking of, and it wasn't Kako. Either way, it seems like these guys gonna get drafted by the Rangers struggle in that organization. But yeah. Speaking of young guys, I don't know if you saw.
It did.
Okay. Okay. How excited were you to see this? The first
I've
Chinese
been
born.
excited since the draft when
Right.
he
'Cause he
got
was.
drafted by the Jets.
That happened this past draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you guys missed this news, Kevin He, that's how you pronounce his last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kevin He recently signed with the NHL. Oh, sorry, with the Jets. I'm reading the caption off Instagram. With the Winnipeg Jets and became the first Chinese-born player to sign an NHL contract. He was drafted this past draft. I remember how excited you were to see where he would end up. You wanted the Sharks to draft him if possible. Um, didn't go that way. I think.
That
I
was
think
actually you got those two mixed up. I
I'm
actually
mixing everything up
wanted
today.
Zane Perek. I wanted
Oh,
us to get Zane Perek. But when I saw that I was not aware of Kevin He until he was drafted, and then I was like, that's so cool. I'm gonna
right.
follow his career with the Jets. That's cool.
Yes. So, in the spirit of diversity, that's remember at the beginning of this season, I was gonna keep tally of the diversity
Mm-hmm.
points. Here we go. The Jets get 1 point here. Chinese-born player signs an NHL contract. He was drafted this past season. I don't know if he's actually playing for the team yet, or if this is like
Don't believe so.
gonna happen sometime soon. Um, But this is cool. Like on Instagram, they posted a video of him talking about his journey to the NHL. They interviewed his dad as well. The reason he even got into hockey was because his dad, I think, went to school or he worked in Toronto for a little bit or somewhere here in Canada. Went back to China, had a family, raised his son to skate around in like they had like an ice rink inside a mall type thing there. It's not very popular in China, but he grew up skating there, eventually moved out here to geez, I can't remember what city, but they moved back to Canada, and that's when he ended up getting his son into hockey. So Kevin Hay is now like he fell in love with the sport. This is not just like his dream, this is his father's dream that he's living out. it's very much like that traditional living up to your parents' expectations, but in a good way. um, the whole Chinese culture thing. I'm sure you're aware.
When I saw the video, one of my first thoughts was when he went over and him and his dad were bleh. When him and his dad were hugging, I was just like, "Whoa."
What is this
Like, wow,
affection?
there's a lot of affection going on there.
What do you mean you love him?
You're actually saying that you love him and you're hugging him? Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw this and I was really excited. I thought you would be too. So we love the progress that we're seeing in this. Well, some of the progress that we're seeing in this league. It's not happening fast enough, but it is nice to see it happening. Okay. On the topic of progress, this past week we had wait. Okay, so maybe you can speak more on this one because I've been a little cut off from the internets this week, but
So this actually came about because this person, Emily Ann, Hyper Emmy on I guess wherever you get your social um yeah, wherever you are on socials. Um she was putting a signal boost out to kind of find sports podcasts that had women at the helm and kind of just wanted to, you know, give the signal boost from her TikTok.
mhm,
And Lacey, I believe, from Double Hockey Sticks, was the one who put our name into the pool, being like,
mhm,
hey, check out this podcast, whatever. So Emily does some stuff at TikTok, on TikTok, and wanted to kind of put out a video just highlighting all these different sports podcasts that have women hosts. And so she finally did that. If you follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, it did go ahead and retweet it. Basically, there and if you end up knowing anybody who has a podcast that isn't on this list, go ahead and find Emmy on Blue Sky or Twitter. She is planning to do another one of these and just kind of wanting to help grow these podcasts and give people opportunities to find these various podcasts. So there's Bar Down Beauty, there's Stick Season Hockey, there's What the Chell, there's Shutter Sports, What's in a Game, The Gist of It, Lock On Red Sox, Just Women's Sports, and then the podcast that Emmy runs with another host, Chirping on Causeway. There's you Sports. There's All Goals, No Misses. There's Jocks and Jills. There's obviously Too Many Men. Puck Princess, Wicked Alert, Overtime Chicks, and I don't know if I'm going to say this properly. Wee Mouthers, Waymouthers, WEY Mouthers. So, yeah, so those are just a couple of or handful of sport podcasts that have women who are hosting, and we just want to give a shout out to all the great work that Emmy has put together to kind of give that a signal boost. So go check
right.
out if you want more specific information about where to find them. You can find us on Twitter, obviously, or Blue Sky to get more information about that.
Yeah, loves to support women's in sports. I made the joke. I don't know if you saw me retweet this. I made the joke that I'm the women and you're the lead in this women-led podcast. Yeah. This for those of you that don't know, this podcast will not survive without Jay. I am a mess. I am so disorganized. So, yeah. Well, that's pretty much what we have for this week. Keeping up with the Sharks, whatever diversity stuff's happening around the NHL and outside of the NHL, just sports things in general. The holidays are coming up. Hope everyone has a nice, chill holiday season. And yeah, we'll catch you next week. I'm your host Ness.
And I'm Jane.
Catch y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.